Hey, everybody, welcome to this week's Fateless podcast episode. We've got a special guest in Adam, who is a returning guest here on the channel. Good to see you. And then joining from the Fateless team, we have got Simon. So good to see both of you. And Adam, I'll let you go ahead and just kind of reintroduce yourself to everybody real quick.
Okay, my name's Adam. I run the YouTube channel, The Adventures of Adam, currently covering Godforge, and I'm just really looking forward to the game and being here.
Awesome.
Awesome. Well, I think you're known, Adam, as one of the detectives in
Mhm.
the sort of CC group.
Yeah, me and Ragewood are pretty, probably
Yeah,
the two main ones.
quite often I'll release a video and I probably didn't mean to do it, or maybe there's just like some small snippet in the video or in an image. And next thing I see, it's like Ragewood and Adam are like talking about it, and then the videos are coming out, and I'm like, I don't know if I was meant to show that one.
Yeah, there was
Uh,
one where like you just had like a big sheet open, and like at the top there was like this tiny little. You can see the starter champions that were revealed, but it was like
that's it.
probably a centimeter on your screen. I just zoomed way in on it. I was like, hey, I think we just saw the starter heroes.
Yeah, I love that. Well, I guess today we're going to be talking a lot about the sort of disables and the buffs and debuffs in game. But before we get into that, you're obviously covering Godforge. What's the enthusiasm? Where's that coming from for Godforge? What are you most excited for?
What I love, okay, I come from Raid Shadow Legends, and I started playing in 2020, like when the pandemic hit, and from then until now. And Raid is a game that has so much potential, but Plarium seems to do everything they can to try to squander that potential. It's like they're just getting in their own way of letting the game being good. And what I'm looking forward to with Godforge is just hopefully Fateless will just not sabotage themselves and just allow themselves to make the game great. Like that's what I'm hoping for. And it's everything I've seen so far. Like Asmongold has this notion that he refers to as like the MMO paradox, where the less you know about an MMO, the better it is. And then slowly, the more information that comes out, the more and more people get upset that it's not living up to their
Yeah.
expectations. The opposite, I feel, is true for Godforge. The more I learn about this game, the more excited I get to play it. It's like every time new information comes out, I'm like, oh, this looks so good. I can't wait. So
That's
it's
actually awesome because I've been, obviously this is this big wave of expectation, right? We're gamers building a game, therefore we cannot do a thing wrong, and everything's going to be the most fun experience you've ever had in your life. And clearly, we want people to really enjoy the game. We're trying to build the best version of a game in this genre that we can. But that is a big wave of expectation, and it's really hard to live up to any sort of wave of expectation that's high, that high. And obviously, I mean, Brad, we've been playing the alpha internally for ages, really, but more seriously for the last month or so as we get ourselves ready to release to the community. I mean, I don't know. It'd be good to get your perspectives. I know I've got my view on this, but Brad, like in the last month, how have you felt the game's moved, like as a playable experience?
Yeah, it's been, the Fateless team has just been ramping up and ramping up and ramping up. So I feel like our capabilities are growing the longer that time progresses. And so, yeah, every month the game is radically better than before. And so far, I've been mainly kind of testing. I've been looking for things that will break and
Yeah,
testing weapons and testing functionality. So I'm kind of like replaying stages and trying to find as many of that stuff as I can. And then pretty soon here, like, diving into later this week and this weekend, I'm going to start doing the new player experience and trying to kind of play through the alpha a little bit more.
yeah.
So I'm trying to kind of get both sides of it. But yeah, it's been very promising. How fast we're able, or how much better we are now than we were like a year ago, and how fast we're able to move.
Yeah, I mean, considering it is an alpha that's going to be coming out, I played heavily over the weekend on different devices just to try that sort of first experience, and damn it, like to me, it feels like a really fun experience already. Like I'm really pleased with what the team have been able to pull together, and coming to the sort of conversation that we're going to be getting into today around some of the different mechanics that we're putting into the game. Now, some of them, they've been seen before. It's not like we're completely inventing something brand new in terms of mechanics here, but some of them though do feel kind of fun and different. So I guess Adam, let's hand over to you. I know you've got some questions. I feel like Dirk is trying to join us from some shape while he was
Yeah,
Yeah, we
window
have
pop
fun
up.
around here and keep
It's going to
things casual.
materialize
So
in a minute, but I think we can crack on anyway.
if Dirk
Okay.
pops in, we'll say hi to him.
So first, I'd like to. Oh, hi, Dirk. I'd like to talk a little bit about the relationship between accuracy and resistance and how they're going to function in Godforge. Just to start off.
Oh yeah. So I guess firstly, I'll start with the basics, and then maybe Dirk or Brad can go a bit deeper dive. But the basics of accuracy and resistance, there's still a requirement of accuracy to land debuffs on enemies, and resistance can negate debuffs. So that's kind of like one use of the stats. So you can build a high accuracy build to make sure you land your debuffs on bosses or enemies. And you can also build a high resistance build to try and stop yourself from having debuffs or disables put on you. I guess where it gets a bit more interesting, because we felt like in some other games, if you don't have a need for that stat, then it's just a redundant stat. And we don't really want anyone to be building redundant stats on any of their heroes, or to feel like a piece of gear is just completely trashed because it didn't roll these specific 3 stats. So we were really like theory crafting how we could make it more interesting. I guess, Dirk, do you want to jump in and sort of talk around the sort of secondary elements?
So aside from like the obviously there's the similarity to raid where you need accuracy to beat resist. The formula is similar, although there's less like there's only 2% or whatever variance. Like you can get 100% resist, you can get 100% chance to land something. There's no like slight chance to fail always. But yeah, what we did though is we did add some additional effects to those stats. So besides that,
actually, sorry, Dirk, before you go into that,
yeah,
I'm just curious what your opinion is on that, Adam, that there's not just a random chance that you could fail.
I was
Do you like that or
planning
dislike that?
Because that might be a big leap.
To ask about it. I have mixed feelings about it. It's really frustrating when you have a 3% fail, but I think the fact that the possibility lingers and it's ever looming makes when you're watching your runs a little bit more interesting, because it's not just like, oh, well, I've got the stats, it's going to succeed, I don't have to worry about anything. It reminds me of like the D&D, like when you roll a D20, you roll a 1, it's a critical failure. Like it kind of harkens back to that like old school RPG vibe. And while it can be annoying, I sometimes feel like it's a necessary evil, and I know I'm going to get hate for that because nobody likes a 3% roll. It's just one of those things where I think it's like sort of like an unsung hero. Like it's I don't know.
So we've been back and forth internally on this one, and this is the whole point really of stuff like alpha tests and beta tests, like game feel, and that's part of game feel, right? It's kind of like that, the potential for something just to fail, or sometimes being frustrated is actually a good thing because you overcome a frustration and therefore you get the positive. So and we've got experiences like that when it's like, yeah, we're deliberately setting up areas where if you do not enhance your teams in a certain way, you're going to hit a brick wall that you need to overcome. Like that's the whole part of game design. But yeah, so that 3% thing, I was just curious. I saw your eyebrows going. I was like, oh, maybe I didn't know which way you were swaying with that. But okay, Dirk, yeah, carry on.
Yeah, so I do think about that. That's probably big news. Then there's no 3%. Like I said, it goes both ways too. Because initially we're gonna get rid of the 3% on the chance to fail, but we're gonna keep like on the low end, we wanted to potentially always get a chance to succeed. But I guess we figured that if we're gonna be consistent one way, you got to be consistent the other way. So if you get a 100% chance to land something, then you can also get a 100% chance to resist something. But past that, he added other stats to it. Because like what Simon said earlier, it always felt really bad to get really high resist, especially like you get scores really high, you had your character, like the number that shows how much resist you have. You stacked up to the gills, you got like 700 resist, you're feeling good, all 4 characters. You farmed, forever to get this. And then someone's 720 accuracy, see if you just wipes it away. It's as if you had 0 gear on. And it's kind of just a crappy feeling that you, in theory, could have stacked gear, but their one character that matters could just beat your score by like teeny tiny amount, and then your gear was all for nothing, and then you get nuked, and guess what that resists? That's nothing for you. So what we added to ours is we kind of combined it with resist and then like World of Warcraft resilience. So you got both the res stats. It just reduces crit damage taken. So even if you go super high resistance, their accuracy beats yours, at least their nuker doesn't necessarily blow you up afterward because while you're not going to have the defense, or maybe you want to have defense, but if you have the stack resist, you won't take as much from the crit. So it's a cool little secondary one. Also, it's just a good the stat to have in the game in general is if we're gonna let crits get out of control. And another thing we're doing is we're letting strong hits also multiply with crit damage. In Raid, I don't know.
I was gonna ask
something
about that
we
too.
actually didn't even notice in Raid until we started like working on the mechanics on our own. In Raid, if you strong hit but you crit, the crit overrides strong hit. You don't actually get strong hit bonus damage. We're allowing it, but you
That's
get
awesome. I'm
resistance.
so excited to hear that. It sounds cool.
Yeah, so like we have the counter already kind of in play for that. So numbers will be bigger in theory, but you can get more defenses for it. And then
But
I guess the other side, yeah.
so the accuracy is also boosting that chance, right? So it starts to
Well, accuracy boosts your strong hit chance. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, while resistance is going to reduce crit damage you take, accuracy you're a little different in that you're going to boost your strong hit. So you have your normal strong hit chance based on affinity. I guess like the only thing different is let's see, was it 30% chance to get the strong hit against someone who's a weak affinity. If you're like eternal affinity, and you don't get like a strong hit chance normally, well, you still get a 10% strong hit chance though. So you get to interact with the mechanics. So if you get something like high accuracy on an eternal legendary, you can strong hit anyone and perhaps reliably. It's not like crit chance. Don't expect to get 100% strong hit chance. Expect more to go from like a 10% to like a 20%, but you can influence a strong hit chance that way.
Man, Dirk's answering all my questions before I could even ask him. I'm just checking them off the list.
I don't know that it quite. I don't know that it quite doubles. I think it's closer to like going from 10 to 15, so it's like a 50% boost.
Yeah.
But
If you stack it like absolute mad, you can probably I think get like a double. But yeah, it's not like it's not like going to be an additive increase where you just here's another 7%, here's another 10%. Oh, I'm at 100%.
But what will be quite interesting because you got these layering mechanics, right? And that's what we really wanted with Godforge was to have real depth in builds and choice, right? So when someone's decided to do a build, good gear sets that could come on and change the way a build works. The weapons coming on with fun passives that again can change the way a build works with the imprint system. And let's say you're going along this kind of like strong hit build. Well, it might be that you're choosing a weapon then that again enhances the power of your strong hits, and you've got an imprint which kind of enhances that as well. So suddenly you're developing this build that stacks, I guess, synergy for the type of event you're trying to run. So it's just, I guess that's what we wanted. There's enough choices that it doesn't feel like here's just a cookie cutter damage build. Here's a cookie cutter tank build.
Accuracy contributes to maximum damage.
Yeah. That's the other fun part too now. So now you need more.
There you go.
More than just crit rate, crit damage, attack. You need accuracy as well. If you want to get the max. And if strong hits are gonna really have a big impact on your max damage. Obviously, if you're playing like neutral affinity or weak affinity, then it doesn't really matter. But yeah, in the right situations, and let's say you can have a build that procs something on strong hit. Next thing you know, accuracy might be your best damage stat. Not usually, but it can be.
Okay. Is there going to be a limit to the number of status effects that can be placed on a single target in Godforge?
Yeah. Well, yeah. It's as of now. Sorry, as of now, it's 10. Just because the numbers. It's nice number, but visually it's tough to make 10 work. So. Yeah. But for now, we're keeping it at 10 just because there's that expectation.
No, that's a good number.
I think as well, like one thing which is really underrated in the way Raid Shadow Legends have done their UI is how easily you can see buffs and debuffs. Like they are really clear. And the thing is that, I mean, we just get used to it. Like they are plastered all over the screen. So actually you can't really see what's going on other than the buffs, debuffs. But obviously for this type of game, turn-based game where you're setting up teams and stuff, it's vital information to be able to read it really well. So that's something which we're playing with and definitely want to get some feedback from the alpha about because already I think ours are slightly too small to read them really well. And, so we've already got plans to kind of tweak it. But again, you've only got so much space on the screen. depends what you're trying to do with the screen, you know, what you're trying to highlight. So yeah, it's definitely underrated. Like getting 10 debuffs and potentially buffs for every one of your heroes and every one of the enemy on the screen without, you know, just killing all of the real estate of the game is really hard.
Well, and Raid didn't have to show initiative and ultimates and stuff, so we have even less space to play with.
It's one of those things too that like obviously we're scared to like flood the screen with UI, and it has to be big enough that you can even tell what the icon is, because it contains like the type of buff you're getting plus the duration of it, and that if none of that's legible, there's no point to any of it. But then there is like that. I don't know. I've always enjoyed in Raid, even like when you do like dish out the debuffs with someone, and you see like the reg just like blobbing over the screen, like. There's a guy that, like the start of the battle throws up 4 poisons on all enemies.
Calvalex.
Like, when that's happening, that's like you know that the enemies are screwed. Like it's just, even if you don't know that's poison, you're just watching red. Just so like there is times where the UI could kind of like fill the role almost to like VFX in like setting up like you know, just like the illusion of someone getting wrecked. But yeah, it's. If you don't do that, then it just looks like a mess. So that's like definitely the balancing act that we.
It's actually funny though. We've had people come in to our team, like great people built great games, right? But they've not built a game in this specific genre. So you know, one of the guys who came from actually one of the game designers for EverQuest, and you know, Joel was like, "Gosh, we need to get all of this stuff off the screen. Like we can't see the gameplay," and you're like. It's so important, like all of the kind of like pop-up text and all that sort of stuff. Let's just get it gone. And I'm like, it's so important to know if you're pushing turn meter back or boosting turn meter or, you know, landing your buffs or getting resisted or all of this stuff. It's like for people that play this genre, that information is essential if you're trying to build like, you know, cool teams that actually work and that type of stuff. So it's just like that feedback of text actually. I don't know. Maybe we try to do it a different way, but we absolutely do need it in some way.
Yeah, it's a very critical one. But
when you do these runs over and over, oh sorry.
I was gonna say the pop-up text. Yeah, hey, go ahead.
Go ahead, Dirk. Go ahead.
Well, it's just coming a long way trying to get all the information like put out into that pop-up text, and that's still I think a work in progress. But like we're just between like the pop-up text and then especially with turn meter, like you're saying, working that also with we have like a turn order listed on the left side. It's different than like, I know like Ethereum Restart is doing something similar, but there's like a big giant turn meter you're on, but it doesn't actually show your turn order. So like you still get tricked when you look at that. Like you have to kind of know like, oh, this person's faster. So even though they're way behind in the turn meter, they're going to get the turn faster. But yeah, trying to like find the UI ways to actually show this has been a challenge. That's
so in Ethereum, it's like a racetrack and they're kind of like catching each other.
Yeah. Okay. Whoever's almost at the finish line, you know, it doesn't always matter. Whereas ours is just showing you like, as of right now, this is who's going next. So I'm personally like, prefer ours, but like I said, trying to get the information to actually like when you do have a turn meter, you know, decrease, having that information transfer over to the other UI elements as well. So sorry, Animo.
No, you're good. You're good. I was gonna say like. When you're doing these runs over and over, it's you're watching the same thing happen again and again, and seeing those big information like this number, that number, weak hit, strong hit, like it really helps like give you something to focus on to make it more interesting to watch than just seeing the same animations. You know, because the numbers are always different. I'm assuming, are you guys going to have damage ranges or is it going to? Is there variance in how much damage and attack deals? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, it's really cool when like you see your Cold Heart get a crit on the high end of her damage, you know, like, oh, that one was way higher than the last one, you know. It's like it's cool, the variance and seeing that in real time it just adds to the excitement.
That's something we've debated internally and are still discussing in terms of like damage ranges. I'm not sure that we do, guys, for alpha.
For alpha we might not. So again, it's like a feedback and understand, but I think we probably will end up with like a plus and minus 10%, just so that it doesn't feel just this is a cookie cutter run every time. Because sometimes what people think they want versus actually what they want is two different things, right? People think they want absolute consistency. People think they want every best shiny toy out of the packet straight away. But actually, what they really want is a bit of a RNG, not like crazy amounts, but they do want a bit, and they definitely want that moment where they felt like they got that really cool champion or weapon or whatever it is, and it was an unusual experience rather than the norm. So
you can't have highs without lows.
Yeah.
It goes both ways.
Yeah. So and that's where, we was talking a bit about expectation earlier. That's one of the areas where I feel like expectation might not be met, because I personally do not feel like the summon rates and stuff like that in most of these games are that far off, really. I think actually they're probably about right. Maybe you could do with a few more of the resources to actually summon, so you get more opportunities to have that fun moment. But I don't think that boosting a chance to get, say, a powerful legendary from 1% up to 5% actually makes the game feel more fun. I played games where they've done that, and they get pretty boring quite quick. So
you also have the problems of like you don't have enough resources to even like level or do anything with these characters. There's nothing worse than like if you pull like 4 legendaries in a row, you're like, oh baby, I'm swimming in gold here. And then you realize legendary books are gonna take you the next year before you can use any of those characters. And yeah, I don't know. It's almost worse sometimes. Like I'd almost rather like have the dream of getting this character than actually get the character and like, well, I'm gonna be able to use it for a good 7 months because I need to book these characters first. And then there's no excitement in that at all anymore. Whereas if you didn't have the character, you think you'd be excited when you got them.
Yeah.
I was wondering if we could talk about the bleed debuff.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, sure.
we can talk about it. I got Drac as my first legendary on my first like caverns run. So beat Fafnir for the first time, got Dracula. I was like, damn, I am getting some bleeds on, and he's a really fun champ. Yeah. So, but anyway, what specifically are you after?
Okay, so I was looking at the list of buffs and debuffs that you guys put in the content creator thing, and it says bleed deals 1% max HP damage per turn, and it stacks up to 10 times. When a bleed is applied and does its damage, does it fall off or does it stay on and accumulate?
No, it stays on, and when it stacks, it's like I would look at something like poison and raid is almost been like horizontal stacking, as in it's gonna stack individually on the bar. You can have up to 10 debuffs, therefore 10 stacks of poison, but they conflict with others. So there's like that balancing act of like, how balls will I go on poison? Because I still need to land defense down. And if I go too crazy in poison, I can't do the important. Like, God forbid you poison someone, miss an attack down, and you wipe, right? So that's kind of like the juggling act. Bleed is meant to be like a vertical stack. So it'll stack on itself, but it won't take up more spots. So it's like you're just kind of increasing the count of bleed, and then no, they do not decay normally. That was something originally had in there, is duration would reduce it, but we want to try keeping it a little bit different. So they will not go down. You'll just keep ticking away each turn. But mend, which will be like our regen, is intended to be the counter to it. So mend, each tick of that will wipe a tick of bleed away.
So what you're saying is my speculation was correct.
Yeah.
I made a whole video about it a few weeks ago.
Yeah. I did see it, and I was like, yeah, that's exactly what it's doing. Because the thing is, what we wanted from the 3 starters was just like different directions. So, you've got, well, I guess everyone gets to play with them and try them out, right? But basically, you've got 3 different debuffs which all interact really differently. One which we wanted to be a bit more like self-sustaining, one which we wanted to be kind of like, I guess, longer term high damage, and one which was, I guess, just immediate damage. So again, like the balancing of those, we've been tweaking actually whilst we've been playing the alpha and doing that. I've basically been running accounts with all of the starters consistently, and trying to get really fun combos with some of the epics that you pull as well. But yeah, we're just trying to make sure there's a good variety of debuffs and directions for different fights.
Okay. So once bleed reaches 10 stacks, is it capped, or can you sort of like open a new wound to start a new instance?
No, it'll cap out, but we're trying to give those effects that like when you hit max stacks, then you get something. So that'll be like there's already a few now. I mean, eventually I want to have a character that's when you reach max stacks, it's kill them. Like that's be that. That'll be that. Yeah, that's some
Maybe that could be Jack the Ripper.
Yeah, but
Or
there
something.
are so like softer versions of that effectively boil down to it already. Where when you reach 10 stacks, you know they're gonna feel it. Like it's
Okay.
just
So there's like built-in passives for individual heroes.
yeah.
Okay.
That, like
That's
trigger
really
either
cool, actually.
passive or just part of an ability that like apply a stack of bleed. If they already have 10, then do this instead. So
Okay. That actually
yeah.
makes it, because I was thinking about it like mathematically, and if you can have multiple instances of acid applied, like you can with poisons and raid, I was thinking like, well, you can get way more damage on the target way faster with Ramses because he's putting the acids out. So I like mathematically, it's like you can do way more damage way faster. So maybe bleed might need a little help, but if there's like bonuses to applying bleeds and reaching certain thresholds, then maybe that can balance it out. That's pretty cool.
Also, acid will wear off naturally, whereas bleed, you place it and you're good. So it's going to be a little bit more longevity to it. And then we're going to have other ways to interact with it, like, you know, count the number of bleeds on targets and do increased damage based on that. So there'll be other ways within the game to synergize and kind of base off these stacks where you get certain bonuses.
Which Draco's doing to an extent right now with his bleeds. He can remove bleed, I guess, but he does a lot of damage when he does.
Yeah.
I don't know, you're enjoying that. Dracula, just his visuals. I love that. Like,
Yeah, and he's just like walking towards them, like basically slashing all the bleeds away, absolutely nuking them. So it's a lot of fun.
So you guys have a lot of status effects that have like extra like flavor to them. Beyond just like they all have their name and then they do something that's pretty self-explanatory for the name. But there's a few that like there's like an extra cherry on top and flavor for like, and I just wanted to talk about those and give you guys a praise because I thought they were really cool. So acid, for example, not only does it do damage to the enemy based on their max HP, but because it's acid, it's like melting away their armor and it like turns off their armor set bonuses and it does extra damage to shields and barriers. Like I thought that was just like a really cool extra like flavor of they're being attacked by acid. Like, of course, that makes so much sense.
Yeah. I guess one of the things we really wanted for Godforge is a bit of a throwback to, I guess, D&D style games or like RPGs where, you know, what were these things doing back in the day? Like, what type of things were these debuffs actually originally invented to do in these games? And we wanted to make sure we had some of that coming in. So, you know, rather than just go with what the norm is right now, it's like, how do we make them more interesting and also make choices then more interesting? You know, if you think about when we get to the point of having roguelikes in game for when we launch, and you know, you can literally do builds based on these different debuffs, and and in those we want for there to be obscene power curves of damage if you like really dial into a build. So yeah, that's where the fun comes from in a roguelike, really. It's like just having this like godlike run and just getting all of these stacking multipliers going on top of one another for a particular build you're trying to do. So we're trying to like forward think for that as well to make sure that
I'm so excited for the roguelike, man. That's got me so excited. Like that podcast you did with Imtashed, I was like, preach, brother. Like everything he said, I 100% agreed with. Like, just if you have any questions on how to build a good roguelike, just talk to Imtash. He's got it down. He's got it figured out.
Yeah, he's loving the roguelike. Yeah, definitely.
Freeze was another one that I really liked because not only does it skip the turn, but it also like reduces turn meter fill effects. It makes sense. Like they're frozen, they're gonna move slower. Which kind of made me think of like Frostspringer in Raid. You always kind of like teased her for not actually bringing the frost, but in her original kit before she got buffed, she did an AoE decreased speed, which is like she's not freezing them solid, but she's still slowing them down. I don't know.
True.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. You guys, you know, brought some extra frost into the freeze rather than just having it skip their turn. And it doesn't nerf their damage either, which I'm sure that was, you know, it doesn't reduce incoming damage, which
some of that do make sense. Like, I don't know, you ever whack your hand or something when it's cold?
Yeah, it hurts way more.
Hurts more, if anything. Yeah, I never got the whole like you take less damage for your freeze. If I did, I saw Terminator 2. I know what happened to be frozen.
T1000 shatters.
I think they did it for balance reasons.
Same thing with sleep. Sleep, you take extra damage because you're sleeping.
That's what I was getting ready to talk about next. Yeah, because like if you're asleep, you're not able to defend yourself, right? Like you're not going to be able to brace yourself for the incoming damage.
So that's gonna be like a premier, like a potentially nuker one where you'd sleep them and then you want to pop the sleep.
Yeah, I did a maximum damage short where I was talking about all the buffs and buffs and disables and stuff that would increase a character's damage, and I included sleep in that.
And it might be too much. We'll see. It doesn't. We're going. We want you definitely to feel the impact of it. So if it's too much, but yeah, it's just something we don't want any like I don't think there's a single like boring CC of just like skip a turn. Like they're all like
They
doing
all look
stuff.
super interesting. You
And
guys
then
did a
there's
great
also a
job
lot
with
of-
those.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. There's I'm hoping there was a couple other that didn't make the cut, mostly due to like development time, like transform. We wanted to have our own version of a polymorph. Maybe to be determined. But that's the only one that hasn't made the cut so far. And then none of you seem confused. That's the one right now that's everyone's enjoying that so far. That's playing the alpha because it's
Yeah.
I saw the community poll you guys did too. Everyone, like, which one are you the most excited for? Everybody voted for Confuse.
Yeah, that's one that just happened to work.
It is fucking brutal, honestly.
Especially if they have a
supposed to do
crowd
less
control on
damage.
their A1 and then they, yeah.
Yeah, we're like, oh man, there's a couple of heroes where it's just like, wow, they are so strong because of Confuse.
Mordred coming out.
Yeah.
Just
Well,
like,
actually,
work
it was like 4 times stronger than it should have been because Confuse is supposed to reduce the damage that the person is doing to their own team, but it wasn't coded right, so it was just doing 100% damage. I was just like this. I think it was like wave 15 in the tower. I got completely confused, my whole team, and I'm like, this is wave 15. Like, are we
Stop hitting
like
yourself. Stop
overtuning
hitting
this
yourself.
big time here? I was getting wrecked. So yeah.
Yeah,
It's fun
there's only and then the funny thing is too, it's one of those mechanics that very, very powerful, especially when it was doing full damage. Very powerful. And we don't have that many characters, so I'm trying to like, all right, let's not get carried away. Let's don't nerf Confuse yet. There's only like 4 characters that have it. All of them are in the alpha though. Like it's very eager to be like, man, this Confuse is really out of control right now. When you have like Loki, Odin, like all the characters that are like they actually use it, and they're all like legendaries that they're meant to be tricksters. So
Yeah.
it's they'll feel that way.
While we're on the subject of sleep, before we get too off topic, I wanted to get this question here. So sleep reads duration reduced when attacked. The way this is worded implies that if one of my heroes were to play sleep for 2 turns, for example, taking 1 instance of damage won't necessarily cancel the effect entirely, but rather just knock off 1.
Yeah, it's just gonna knock it down like a turn. And we actually did it with a bunch of I think a couple other disables. Maybe not disables, but what's the debuffs?
I thought that was really cool. It's like sleep might not suck, like in
Well,
your game,
but-
sleep is going to be like a top tier debuff.
Also, it
disable.
means that you can leave debuffs to be active on boss fights as well, because it's not just going to completely disable them forever. Like as soon as the next hit comes in, it starts to degrade it. So we didn't want for every boss to suddenly have a passive that says, oh, by the way, half your kit doesn't work, because, and obviously just completely disabling bosses with stuff like sleeps and stuns, so they just completely miss a turn every time, is not acceptable either, because it's too easy to beat them. So it's like, how do we find a fun way to make disables useful if they're involved in teams that have actually been crafted together in the right sort of way? So it's kind of like that balance of what can we do with it, and what becomes either too boring or overpowered, I guess.
That's something. Yeah, another thing we're playing with is like being able to place like a disable on a boss, like a freeze, and then maybe the boss doesn't serve his turn, it'll wipe it, but at least you'll have gotten the effect of the freeze along the way. And more important, you'll get the proc of, I put the freeze in the boss. Now all of a sudden, every time you place freeze, do X effects happen. Whereas it just stinks to have this whole kit based around like Scotty. Her whole kit's like, when you place a freeze, you get this. And if you place a freeze, enemy does this, and then just none of that works because you can't even place the freeze. Therefore, all the text in the kit is just meaningless. So we're trying to avoid less like hard counters of just you can't do this, and more like if you do this, you're gonna pay the price for it. Or you can do this. It's not as good as you normally think, but there's a way less like you can't do this.
And it's also going to work on the other side as well. Like we've all been there in games. You're clearing faction wars or whatever, and there's an enemy that places like unkillable, and you just keep reducing their turn meter, and you can never kill them. And you come back to your computer like 5 hours later, and you're like, wait, this wave is still going. Right now the way we've structured it on things like Immortal, where you prevent fatal damage, is you can actually reduce it based on the effect proccing. So like you can't just place Immortal for 1 turn and be immune for 5 hours, because you'll get the duration
same way that
reduced.
sleep works right now, where you hit them, it reduces the duration. That's how some of the debuffs in buffs for that matter are gonna work. That like when they are triggered, like unkillable, are we call it Immortal. That one, so you don't get now maybe it stinks because it's gonna be harder to set up an unkillable team for like a clan boss. But it's still, the effect exists and works, so it's up to you to extend the duration. But there won't be any more like, oh, sorry, I have 100 speed against your 400 speed, and you keep lowering my turn meter, I'm invincible forever. Like that won't happen anymore.
So speaking of Immortal, and all these other effects that are reduced when they're attacked or whatever, how do those engage with multi-hitter abilities?
It's based on the attack versus the hit. So like if you're using like is a good one, I guess maybe like Charm. Charm is like, or Intercept. It's where like either an enemy or an ally is gonna essentially step in and take the hit for someone else. It wouldn't make sense if someone jump in with a 3-hitter and you have 2 stacks of Charm. They're not gonna jump in, whack someone twice, and then you're like, no, the third hit's you, bro. I took 2 for you. It would just be for the attack itself.
Okay,
like,
I don't like to make assumptions, but I was really hoping that's the way it worked. I just wanted to be sure.
I don't know if this got in, but I remember reading one of the kits. Basically, I go through sign-off kits at some point, and I don't know if it was one of Brad's where it was like a 7-hitter or something like that. It was like, it was an obscene number of hits.
Definitely a Brad.
I was just like, damn. And that was when actually this sort of conversation started to come up. It's like, well, what if someone's got 3 ticks of sleep? It's like, it's just trying to blow through these ticks. But yeah,
so it's just the attack action. Like the attack action could contain multiple hits, but it's like the attack action that would reduce the duration.
Yeah, it's going to be an important mechanic to understand in Godforge, is the difference between a hit and an attack, because this gives us a lot of balance levers we can pull in many different situations. You'll have a divinity generator that generates 20 divinity per hit, or you'll have one that's generate 50 divinity per attack. And then you can kind of do the math based on the hero, like, okay, and knowing the difference between a hit and an attack is going to be a really good balance lever for us long term.
Yeah, I'm hoping it's subtle enough that like you're not gonna have to know like verbiage on everything, but it will matter sometimes like that. So yeah, the important thing to know is that it's not at least per hit in this case.
Yeah, so this is one of the challenges, isn't it? It's like making a game that anybody can just pick up and play and enjoy, but then it's got enough depth in the game that people that really want to build the best teams and really min-max boss fights or things like roguelikes, min-max the team you're going to be pulling together, or whether it's PvP, whatever it is, you want enough depth that someone that really wants to play the game can really play the game. And they're the type of things that we're kind of like just weighing up really with the different mechanics and that type of stuff.
That's cool. So there's 2 more things I want to touch on. One of them is simple and one of them is not. So we'll start with the simple one first. Radiance says reduces and reflects percentage of attack damage received. But in the tooltip that was shown, it doesn't say what percentage of the damage is reduced by. Is this something you're still balancing, or do you guys?
It's like a 10, 20, 30, depending on if you have Radiance 1, 2, or 3. Yeah. So it's not. Yeah, I hope it wasn't like, does it go to 100? No.
I assumed it was probably in that like 15 to 30 kind of somewhere in there. But so follow-up question on Radiance. So when the damage is reflected from Radiance, is it reflecting a percentage of the damage back as it was before or after damage mitigation? Because I know that was a big complaint about raids sometimes, is that it sucks because the damage gets reduced and then it gets reflect and then it goes through their defense. So by the time you're reflecting, it's like basically nothing. So I was kind of curious.
So it won't be that way. I don't know how it's coded right now, and I don't know if it's. I've not done any testing on it myself. Maybe you have, Brad, actually, but I've not. But definitely, we would want it to reflect the true sort of damage that comes in at you, so that it doesn't feel like it's just a worthless amount of damage. Like
I think initially it was meant to reflect how much damage you're doing pre-mitigation, but then allow for you to mitigate it. I'm not really sure. I doubt it's gonna be code freeze. It's one of those things that's like such a subtle difference that we're gonna probably overlay. You'll probably catch it in testing here. We'll let us know. Actually, no, that's something we're definitely gonna look into because I'm gonna go ahead and say that we haven't corrected it, and I doubt it was set up correctly the first time. But we'll find out. It should be pre-mitigation though.
It
Okay.
won't be the crappy version of it because like Radiance 2 is only going to be 20%. So we're not going to want the crappy version of a 20% reflect. So we'll definitely get that properly integrated.
That's what happens when you build a game by gamers, right? By gamers, for gamers. You guys know what's good. You guys know what's not.
Well,
Yeah, you gotta find the fun, right?
Reflect is one of those ones too, where like a lot of games do it different. It's kind of trying to figure out which ones you like the most. Like I think Path of Exile, I like that reflect and it's brutal in that game. But that one's like a pre-mitigation reflect that you use your mitigation on. So to me, that offers the most counterplay in that like the person using the reflect is getting what they think they're getting in that you're hitting me for a million. You hit really freaking hard. You're going to hit yourself really hard. And then the person on the receiving end of that reflect, they have the opportunity to be like, okay, well, if I go pure glass cannon, I'm going to blow myself up. If I bring someone like we have this a whole class of brawlers, someone tanky who can do some damage, they can take the reflector, or you get the life steal in there. If you're reflecting 20%, it might be 20% life steal. Cool, like you can cancel it. So we want there to be enough counterplay on it, and then it's also one of those ones we attached it to the damage reduction one because there's a few like buffs and debuffs. Obviously, like they're really generic. I don't want to say we're stealing damage reduction from raid. Like it's just one of those ones like, yeah, there's going to be a buff that'll increase a stat. There's going to be a buff that's going to make you take less damage. But
well, they didn't invent that stuff, so you can't really steal it from them, right?
We're not stealing them. Like I said, reduce damage taken by 30%. But it is kind of boring on its own, especially when you already have other ones that are doing something similar. So that's why we attached the Thorns, because Thorns traditionally is another one that's maybe a little bit boring by itself. So now it's like, now this is almost like a tank. It's got like the tankiness built into it a little bit where you're, take a little bit less damage, but you're going to start eating the reflex now. So,
okay. I think I have the question that everybody wants to hear the answer to. Can you tell us more about your Morph, right? Is that what it's called? Yeah. Morph?
Well, it transforms. So, yeah, this is the history behind this is originally it was going to be or polymorph, but polymorph we know this is too triggering.
I think Drock's head would explode if you named it polymorph.
Yeah.
So we're like,
I think that was one of my few vetoes where I was like, no, we just can't do that.
Me too.
We straight up can't do that.
Here's the name. So we're like, well, morph on.
I feel like where we've landed though is way cooler anyway. Like way cooler.
Yeah, transform. And function though is way different. So raid polymorph, like it doesn't follow the rules of the game for some reason. Like it just wipe your stats. You can't like block it with any sort of like blocking a debuff effect. Can't like. It just seems like nothing works. Like it doesn't behave how any other CC in the game works. Ours won't be like that. It's gonna follow the rules of the game, but B, it's a little bit different than CC. We wanted to transform you into like a random critter or an animal. And this is why it's not done yet. Is just that because it just needs more assets. Like we have to model these, right? So if they get turned into like a frog, we have to have a frog, and we still have that. We have some.
We actually do have the frog because we made the frog for Merlin's staff, or we made it specifically so that it would work for this.
Okay, yeah. So and we do have the bird too. So yeah, so we're trying to get a little plethora of little harmless creatures, and then you get turned into one of them with transform, and then you're gonna keep your stats. Your stats don't just like vanish. And you keep your stuff, all that, but your move set is gonna change. So you would get like peck if you get turned into a bird, and it's gonna suck, but it's not gonna suck like so bad. Like it's meant to be a little bit comically bad, but like still like, oh sweet, I got turned into the bird. I'm gonna use peck on this, and I can get some value out of this.
You gotta add this animal sound effects too, like when the chicken attacks. Like
yeah. But I think what's quite cool with it though is like, so obviously you're using it to disable someone, you're using it to weaken them. But let's say I don't know, you change them into the bear, and it's like, damn, actually he can hit, but it's just like all he's got is a swipe or whatever, or it might be the bird. Well, the bird might have a good buff that they can use for their team, you know, to push turn meter or something, but it doesn't do any damage. Like, it's just really low hit. So you might be morphing hoping for something, but actually get something else. And I think so. It might cause frustration, but also might be quite fun moments, I think. So
Right. It is still meant
think
to
it's
be
cool.
like disabled, but we actually want to have a couple characters that were built around like positively receiving it. So like I said, it's a disable. It's meant to be a negative effect, but there's a few like in lore like druid or shapeshifter types that we're trying to attach it to. It's supposed to be on Loki's ult as like a passive when you would kill it, he would transform into something random, kind of try to make his escape. That's what he would do historically. So stuff like that. There's a couple other characters that are more druidic in nature, where it's almost part of the kit. Like this guy's going to be transforming. He wants to turn into a bear or like a wolf, and when he does, he's going to mess you up. So he's going to have passives that like while transformed, he's going to gain a boatload of stats. So there's some characters are going to want this transformation. Others, obviously, it's just another disable where they're not using their abilities.
That's awesome. I love it.
But that's what's coming. It's unfortunately we really wanted it ready for alpha, but it was just
it's a bit more work.
It's too much like to get it right now.
Well,
Yeah.
Adam, I know we've got some meetings going on internally, so we do got to bounce out pretty soon here. Was there any last thing you wanted to get in real quick? I don't want to leave you hanging. Was there like a small one that you really wanted to get to?
We answered all of my questions, other than
Brilliant.
will we ever see Sasquatch in Godforge?
Maybe.
Simon, go ahead.
Awesome.
Maybe.
Well, Adam, it's been a blast. Thanks for joining us again, and good work over there on your channel. We will link to
Thank you.
Adam's channel down below. Definitely head on over there for amazing Godforge content. And Dirk, Simon, thanks. And we'll also link the Discord and all that good stuff if you want to give your input on things like status effects that we were talking about. And we will see you soon in the next Fateless podcast episode. Cheers.